Thank you, Crystal, for coordinating the webinar. I am excited to have everybody here. Thank you for coming. We have a great presentation ahead by way of our Microsoft partners through CAMSA. We also have our amazing team with Shireen Simmons here with SoftChoice. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please don't be shy. If you have a question, somebody else likely will have the same. So please feel free to unmute yourself and ask, free flow conversation, or drop it in the chat at your convenience, whenever makes sense. So we look forward to an amazing, informative morning. With that, I will kick it over to Shireen Simmons with SoftChoice.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say a secondary welcome. Thank you for joining us on this webinar today. This will be a pretty good technical demonstration of what you can do with your server environment and managing it. I want to thank Microsoft for coming on board with their technical expertise. They will be the presenters for today. I'd like to remind everybody to keep your phones on mute unless you want to ask a question. You are very much welcome to come off mute and ask a question to our Microsoft partners, or you can type any questions you have in the chat. But again, this meeting will be recorded, so if you'd stay on mute, that would be really helpful. So once again, thank you. I am the program manager here at SoftChoice. So if you have any questions about the CAMSA program, or you would like any assistance, licensing questions, etc., you can email camsa@softchoice.com, or you can talk to your local SoftChoice rep. So thank you, everyone. And now we're going to turn it over to Fadi Habib from Microsoft.
All right. Thank you, Shireen. So good morning, everyone. So just a quick introduction from Microsoft side, and then we'll dive into the business value of Azure Arc and, kind of more of the technical demo after this. So Fadi Habib, most of the names I'm familiar with. I see a lot of folks on the call. See some folks that even have the camera on, turn it off. I saw, hey, Dwayne, I saw this, just call out. We had a full-on day engagement a couple months ago. So I'm your technology strategic partner. I cover the entire state of California, all the K-12 and the COEs. And with me is Diana Simmons. Go ahead, Diana.
Hi, everyone. I'm Diana Simmons, the Microsoft account executive supporting all of our K-12 school districts in California that purchased through our partnership with Site. You can think of me as your go-to person for anything involving your Microsoft agreement.
And with us, I'll give a chance also to Jesse to introduce himself. Go ahead, Jesse.
Hi, everybody. Jesse Beal. I'm an Azure technical specialist that focuses on the core area of Azure. So that's compute, networking, storage, basically not data and AI. They bring me in for demos, technical questions, architectural design questions. So pleasure to meet y'all.
All right. So thank you, Jesse and Diana. So part of what thing I like to start with is like what offers, what programs, and what value you have from your CAMSA at no cost to you as well too. So Azure Arc has different modules, etc. But the main one actually, there's a free version of Azure Arc, and we're going to talk in a bit about it. But besides going into in depth of this, what is Azure Arc and why this is helpful for you, and what does it can help you and your environment? So a couple of high level information. So Azure Arc, mainly over the years, you have multiple servers starting around from on-premises to the cloud or different places, and you want to have a kind of unified view of your environment. And that's where Azure Arc comes in place. So it doesn't matter where your server is, if it's on-prem, data center, co-location, your next high school neighbor, or another district, or at the COE, you can just basically have a unified view across your environment with a simple agent being installed. The other benefit out of it as well too, a lot of folks are trying to get familiar with the Azure dashboard and the cloud management tools as well too. So this gives you a little bit of a glimpse how you can be able to interact and see that from a learning skill set as well too. And the other part I always try to drive with, a lot of folks have really major dependency on outdated legacy operating system, and you're having, you still need a bit of a time to be able to get rid of those or upgrade those, but Microsoft's kind of different timelines stop patching those. Well, with Azure Arc extended updates, we'll talk more in depth about it. You can buy back time. You can buy a little bit more time to be able to continue being compliant and security updates through those as well too. So those are kind of, just a high level on unified view of your environment. If you have Windows 2012, 2016, you need a little bit of time to be able to upgrade or stay in compliant. You can continue using those with the extended updates. And also the consistency and security and governance across the board. How it can be able to see those servers against, NIST or against different CSI compliance on that. And we'll go through a little bit more of the slides with Jesse and also the actual dashboard on that. But before I kick off to Jesse, I want it to be an open platform. You can easily come off mute, or you can I'll keep an eye on the chat for Q&A, and we can go in different tangents, how we can cover all Azure Arc. There's a lot to cover, but we'll make sure we cover the free edition, cover the premium edition, and also the extended updates. That's what most customer coming into saying, I want to continue keeping my legacy for now because it's dependent on X. How can I continue being in compliance and security, better security posture on that? That's kind of the value of Azure Arc. And with this, I'm going to hand it off to Jesse on that part.
All right. My slide deck is pulling up right now. At least it should be. There we go. I can see it. Hopefully you can as well. I get my little laser pointer thing here. Okay. So Azure Arc came about because back in the day, like early 2010s, 2013, 2014 or whatever, everyone thought everyone was going to be going to the public clouds, AWS, Azure. Everyone's going to go some cloud. But that just isn't the case, right? As we've found throughout the years, there's reasons for having to keep some things on-prem. Whether it's regulatory reasons, you need to keep things on premise, latency issues because maybe some other applications need to talk to these legacy databases or something like that. Maybe just get free data center space from the state or something. So that is the reality. So Microsoft came up with what is called Azure Arc to help customers be able to take advantage of both their on-premise or other data centers. Other public clouds. And I'll talk about that in a second. And their Azure resources the same way. So they don't need to learn two different technologies, platforms. If you want, for example, if you want to monitor your on-premise and your cloud resources the same way, you can use Azure Monitor for all of that type of single pane of glass. Additionally, we have some services like Defender for Cloud or our Azure Policy, which is in the compliance vein, that we're great at covering our Azure resources that meet these certain compliance levels, say FERPA, NIST, maybe your own organizational policy, right? We're great at managing them there, and we want to manage our on-premise resources the same way. So how can we extend these services? And I just use policy as an example. I mentioned Monitor earlier, Defender. We have all these other services, and I'll talk about those for my on-premise resources or other cloud resources too. So the solution to that is Azure Arc. And I'm sorry, I have a hair on my lip also. Here we go. So again, whether you're on premise, whether you're in our cloud, whether in other clouds, you can take advantage of Azure Arc to try to use, I don't want to use the term single pane of glass too often here, but to manage things the same way. So to lower the learning curve of having to learn all these different things. I'm going to pass that one. So what I mentioned before is you have the multi-cloud data center, you have some edge devices perhaps. I'm going to mute that. There we go. And there are two main areas of utilizing Azure Arc. So there's the security and management and all the resources, and I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the governance, compliance, updating, et cetera, for that. But there's also the infrastructure side and the data side. These are the actual resources that you have on premise. And when you combine both of those with Azure Arc, you have one control plane that you can do multiple things. I'm not going to focus on the Kubernetes and the data side. Like you can create Azure managed instances on on-premise resources. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but Azure's Kubernetes Azure AKS on your on-prem resources to using Azure Arc. It's kind of a bridge between the two, but I'm really going to focus more on the management side of it and the compliance side of it, and governance, because that's what it's mostly used for. One second here. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. A little visual thing. So, I want to make sure I point this out. So Azure Arc for Windows Server, if you have software assurance, enables a lot of free features. And when I say free, I mean it's to take advantage of update management, for example, is free, right? So you can update your on-premise resources the same way you update your Azure resources using what's called Azure Update Manager. So Update Manager is that service, that Azure service that you can extend, is an example of an Azure service that you can extend into your on-premise resource. So if you look at this, you have your regular servers, and then you have your no additional cost that you were always able to get. And this would be whether you have Windows Server or Linux, right? I know I'm mentioning Windows Server a lot because that has a lot to do with the software assurance abilities that you get. But these resources also work for Linux machines as well. And this is the basic management abilities, such as like a CMDB type of thing. What servers do I have, and how many servers do I have that are Ubuntu? 18. How many are Windows 2019, right? You can use that kind of as an understanding of what your full environment is, and that part is all free. So it's basically installing the Azure Arc agent. It's an agent that you install on your machines, is free, and you can get the visibility into just the basic features of this. You can look at the licenses of them for your Windows servers, that is. And you can also, for the Windows part of it, you can also enable certain access abilities like RBAC controls of who can access it from the Azure portal, all for free. Now, you have to have a Windows license, obviously. Don't Arc enable servers that you don't have appropriate licenses for. I would not recommend that. And then you have the additional things here, such as migration, or I'm sorry, as like migration assistant in the inventory of your software that you have. The ability to do that is free, but let's take the example of your software, your inventory software, of like what machines have IIS installed, right? Let's use that as an example. To be able to view that is free, but to keep those records, they're a database, and that requires data, and you will have to pay for a little bit up here. It's not expensive, but there is some data that you'll have to pay for. With Windows, so that everything I just said there was both Linux and Windows OSs. With Windows Server, if you have software assurance, which many of you do, I'm sure, you also get a bunch of other things for free, such as your patching updates, you can get assessments of my best practices, so like any operational features, or your networking assessments. Patching updates, I'm going to talk a lot about that. I'm going to show a demo of how you actually do that. You get some resiliency and recovery options, right? You can extend your Azure Site Recovery backup policies to your machines. Configuration management, that's what we're talking about with the policies. Do we meet certain compliance levels type of things. Windows Admin Center. So you get that part for free. You also can then take advantage of additional services for additional costs. So Azure Monitor is something I mentioned. In order for us to monitor, you need to send us data. You need to send us metrics. And that metrics is data, right? That we have to store. So you will have to pay like a price on that, storing that data in there. Azure Microsoft Sentinel is our SIM solution, our source solution. There's a cost to that. Defender, you will have to pay for it. You can take advantage of it, but there is the Defender cost for that. Purview, ESUs. ESUs are great. Extended security updates are great from Azure Arc, but you still have to pay for them, but you don't have to get like a yearly license. You can pay for them like as a pay-as-you-go type of thing by months, if you will. All right, so the three main pillars of Azure Arc are the management, the government, and the governance and the security of these. And then these are different features of those pillars, of which we have services that you can take advantage of. right? I mentioned Azure Site Recovery. That is a disaster recovery service that we offer, and that would be part of your security, your business continuity security options, for example, right? And so these are the three main pillars I'm going to be talking about through this, and I'll be showing you demos of how we can actually take advantage of all these. Specifically, if we're looking right at the management part of this, I already mentioned a little bit of the central inventory. You know, how many servers do I have of Windows 2019, for example. You can also take advantage of these best practices assessments. So, you know, these best practice assessments aren't only for Windows servers, they're also for SQL Server. They are not for the Linux machines. You can also take in this best practice assessment, for example, is you should have this configuration setting, right? We recommend having at least 2 administrators on the machine, local administrators, you know, those type of things. Monitoring, you can take advantage of this monitoring for this. Patching, I'm going to be talking a lot about that. I'm going to show you how you can take advantage of Windows updates and extended security updates. And also your configuration. We're going to be talking about Azure Site Recovery, which I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I'd be happy to show you later. But how you can manage access, how you can utilize ARC to manage. When I say manage, like create VMware VMs if you have a VMware, create or just delete virtual machines, add disk to a VMware host. Not host, machine, a VM on a host, etc. And we also have what's called the networking monitoring that you can say, I have this NIC attached to this machine that's not doing anything. How about I remove it? How about I remove it? So you get that type of information. I already mentioned a lot of these, and I'm going to show you lots of these abilities. I'm going to show you Update Manager, change tracking, and inventory. I'm not going to show you too much about Azure Site Recovery. It's enabled, meaning you can take advantage of it. But if you actually want to protect it to the Azure cloud, there is a licensing fee. But you basically get the Azure Site Recovery agent, if you will, for free. Remote support, so you can connect remotely to these machines. And I'm going to be talking about all these different things. I mentioned if you have software assurance, this is free. So everything in this green with Windows Server software assurance is part of this, right? So you get the Update Manager, right? That's free. The basic ARC capabilities still stand for the Linux machines. And the reason why I'm showing this is this was just announced in November at Ignite. So it's just still fairly new here. But you'll see here, you can still get a lot of this information with Linux machines. But with server software assurance, you get a lot of this stuff for free. As I mentioned, there are some services that, will incur some log analytics costs, but you get the ability to do it for free. There's no additional licensing fee here. I'm keeping this here. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but these are the management capabilities I'm talking to of what you can do with these. I'm going to be showing them, but this is just in the slide deck. So when I assume we're going to be sharing the slide deck, you'll be able to see this and be what does that mean? What does Azure change tracking mean? For example. So if we dig down a little bit deeper, I'm going to show you what Windows management is. I'm going to talk about these top 3 here. I'm not going to be showing too much about the bottom ones of what we can do, but just keep in mind that they are available. Those are those are things that just come for free in a lot of this stuff. Update Manager. Again, you can manage your on-premise, your Azure resources, other cloud resources, all the same way through Update Manager. That's one of our services we do. You can see, it will show you a dashboard that you can see by machine, what state the machines are in, what by patch, like do I have this particular KB or package, Linux package, and what servers do I have it on, right? You can see that. You can see how past updates went through the dashboard. I'll be showing you Update Manager. Machine configuration. So machine configuration and policy are very much the same thing. You'll hear me using those interchangeably. Policy is more of a like CIS benchmark things. So do you have malware installed? Right? That is that type of thing. Whereas machine configuration is specific to, do I have this environment variable set on these machines? Do I have this directory in this drive on all my machines that I want, right? Do I have this firewall rule, right? And that's really based off of PowerShell DSC, desired state configuration scripts that you write. So it's all programmatical. It's all programmatic, sorry. And you apply it to whatever machines you wish to have. Change tracking and inventory. I mentioned this. This looks at particular software or features. Like IIS, I mentioned SQL. You know, what do you have installed in this, as well as it looks at like registry keys that are known for being exploited in malware, right? Has this registry key been changed, for example? Has this file that's usually a target of malware in my Linux systems, has this been updated? And so you can take a look at when these were updated, if they were, both from the file perspective and key value pairs, as well as when did I update this software last? Has this been updated? And you can set alerts on that too as well. You can use Admin Center through Azure Arc, right? So that means you can do it through the Azure portal, which is just the URL, and you don't need a VPN or anything to do it, so you can do it from home. It will connect. It's a reverse connect through the Azure Arc, so it's outbound from your on-premise machine to Azure. So you can take advantage of, being able to do a lot of this stuff that you would in Windows Admin Center from the Azure portal. Remote support, so you can run like just-in-time access stuff here for your security. You can also run remote commands to these machines as well. I show you a little bit about that. And these remote commands, while you basically send a script to them, you can include like the body of the script in there, such as like start a scheduled task, or you can point to a storage location in Blob Storage, which is one of our storage services. You say use this URL and execute this script that we have stored up there, and it'll grab it for you and execute it. Best practices assessment. These are based on what we recommend for our best practices, and in the following areas down here. And we can give you, we looked at the server and we think you can make these tweaks. Whether you do it or not, it's completely up to you, but it's nice to have that kind of information. Azure Site Recovery is our disaster recovery. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. I mentioned the networking, how you can identify networking issues on the physical hardware. Some of these, it says auto remediate right here. Some of those you can do, not all of them. So I know it's pretty cool if you could just be like, yeah, fix this. But some of them, they are, easy enough to actually do this. All right, so that's enough talking. Now, well, PowerPoint, I guess. I'm not a PowerPoint fan. Let's go to portal here and actually go into a demo. Share this screen. All right, so hopefully you can see my screen. Please let me know if you can't. But this, for those of you that are not familiar with Azure, I'm going to move this thing over here. For those of you who are not familiar with Azure, this is the Azure portal. This is the UI that you can manage all resources. Everything is managed through API calls, and this is just the UI for it. So you can run PowerShell or CLI if you want. You can run your own API calls to manage things. But this is the Azure portal, and everything in here is be under Azure Arc. So if I come in here, the first thing I'm going to show you real quick is this overview page. This overview page is where you can see a lot of, where you can get basic information, and all of our resources usually have an overview page where you can get this. But what I want to point here is add resources, and this is where you can add machines to Azure Arc, basically installing the agent. This is how you enable Azure Arc. And again, this part is completely free. So you can go ahead and do it on a test machine. You're not going to spend anything just by doing this part. I'm going to add a machine, right? And create a machine in a connected environment is like creating a VM in VMware host, right? But this is just to add machine. And you have some options. You can add a single server, add a group of servers, and they will generate a script that you will then execute. You can do an installer. You get a Windows installer, so you can execute that. You can do it from update management. You can add servers from update management. I'll show you how to do that. And AWS is a little bit different. You have to add some more keys. It's a script as well. Creates a connector for you. So there's some things here. But if I just wanted to add a general script here, I would go ahead and fill out some of this information. So add what subscription, which is basically like your billing container in Azure. What resource group, which is a logical container of resources. A resource is a database, a VM, a disk, an IP, right? That's just anything in Azure, really. So you resource group, you choose what region that you want to put it in. This is just the metadata, so just the data coming in where you want the data to go, whether you're doing Windows or Linux. So that just lets you know whether you want to get a PowerShell script or a shell script, really. If you have any SQL Server instances, and then how you're going to connect. Pretty much everyone I work with uses a public endpoint, which basically means your virtual machine that you're adding has internet access. So it can reach the URL, right? The Azure URLs through 443. If you want to go through a proxy server for machines that don't have internet access, you can do that. Or you can use what's called a private endpoint, which basically means it doesn't go through the internet. It goes through your site-to-site tunnel that you have to Azure or an express route. There's an additional cost with this because the service you want to hit. So say you want to hit SQL database in Azure, that has to have a private endpoint. You'll have to pay that side of it too. But most people use public internet here. You add tags. So this is just how you organize it. So these are just key value metadata pairs, right? So this is my colo located in Chicago, Illinois, USA, right? That's what I would be. And then you can add any custom tags that you want. And then you would go ahead and download a script. And it would literally download a PowerShell script that you can then execute. And you can just go ahead and do that on the machine in admin mode. All right. So once you have your machines, they'll show up in this Arc resources called machines. And as you see here, I have 5 machines running that are Arc enabled. I'll just click this Ubuntu one. Actually, let's go to Windows one. Go to this Windows one here. And this is where you can get information about your machines, right? You can get your operating system versions. This is Microsoft. I created it myself, etc. Get some basic information. You can show you can connect to these machines if you want. This is where you can see what kind of extensions and the properties. But this stuff right here underneath operations is where the good stuff is. This is all the things you can really do here. So if I go into policies are, remember those rules. So like FERPA, your own organizational policy. So this is just JSON that you write. So it's I want this scope. So any of these machines to follow these rules. And if they don't, I want you to set up an alert and tell me I'm not compliant, right? And so you can go ahead and take a look at how this machine stacks up against particular policies that you have. So these are individual policies. This is the NIST 800-171 like compliance level. It's basically a group of definitions of policies. That's called an initiative. And you can come in here, you can go ahead and see how I'm meeting any of these rules. Machine configuration is very similar to policies, but these are specific ones that you write using desired state configuration. So like I used the example before, are these users in the admin group? Do I have this folder that I always want to be enabled, right? It's basically your own rules on the application level, or do I have this SQL SA service account login, SQL user. You can write that. And this is, do these machines meet that? Machine. Run command. This is where you can actually go ahead and do those commands that I mentioned. Execute a scheduled task, grab a script from the blob storage, right? And this is where you can do that stuff. There's no SQL Server on machine on this, but this is where you would take a look at what, my licensing that I have here. Do I want to subscribe to ESUs here? Do I want to enable SQL updates specifically, right? And I do, but I don't want to do it on certain SQL Server instances on this machine. You can also set that up. Updates. So when you come into a machine and you look for updates, you have a couple options. You can go ahead and click check for updates. We'll just do a one-time check of where you are right now. And that's what I did about an hour ago. I ran this check for updates thing. So these machines, actual VMs, are actually hosted on an Azure virtual machine that costs a lot of money. So I turn it off between demos. So I turn it on and I ran check for updates. And these are updates that I need to actually run on this machine. It'll tell me if I require a reboot or not. And then you can also actually update it as a one-time update, and you can do that. But what most situations you want to do is you want to schedule updates. So what you can do when you want to schedule an update, you create what's called a maintenance configuration, and you include these machines in it. So the first page when you create a schedule is you just do the same things I mentioned before. You create this machine configuration is an object, and so you need to create you need to create it and give it a name, give it a location that this object lives. So that's your subscription resource group. Here's your name. I'll just use one I've used before. What region? This is just where the object lives. What region? It doesn't mean you can't update machines that are in a different region or anything. It's just the metadata of the object. What the scope of these virtual machine of the update? Sorry. OS images, Azure VMs, whatever. Arc-enabled VMs, which is what you'll be using here. Whether you want to require a reboot or never let them reboot, it's up to you. And then you create a schedule. What's really cool about the schedule is you say, I want this to start, this week, next week, whatever. And I have a maintenance window of 3 hours. And I want it to repeat on the first Wednesday of every month, right? So the first Wednesday of every month, I'm going to update the machines. And I'll show you what machines I'm talking about in a second. I want you to execute this schedule. However, that's great in for your dev test machines, but say you want to update production machines. You have a QA environment and you have a production environment. And you want to make sure your updates work fine on your dev environment before your production environment. You don't want to have one schedule that says the first Wednesday and then your production one's the first Saturday, because sometimes the first Saturday is before the first Wednesday, right? And you don't want to always do the 5th or something like that. So what you can do is you have what is called this offset. So this would be, let's say your dev test environments, the first Wednesday of the month, and then you can offset it by, I don't know, 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 days for, you want to run on Saturday night. You can offset that. You can have your production ones with a different schedule that is 3 days after the first Wednesday. That way, your dev environments are always getting updated before your productions. So if you run an update and you see a certain KB has broken your applications, you can either stop it or remove that KB altogether. Right? I think it's a really cool feature. Next, we go to resources. So that's the schedule, right? That's when you want to apply this and whether you want to reboot and how long my maintenance window is. Now it's what do I want to upgrade? And so you can go ahead and add resources here. So I did this. I did this from this object, this server. But you can do this from a maintenance configuration and anything. But if I wanted to add more, I can go ahead and add different machines. So I want these ones to be included in this maintenance. That is if they're pretty static. You can also do something called a dynamic scope. So before I showed you, these, when you create these machines, you can add key value tags. One thing I see a lot is I want anything that has the tag of, I don't know, environment prod production. Hybrid, but whatever. You can, whatever key value pair that you have created before. So that way, if you Arc enable machine later and you want it to be included in the schedule, you don't need to go into this maintenance configuration, add a new resource every time. You just create them with these tags and it'll automatically be included in these resources. Or if you create a new virtual machine, if you create a new virtual machine and you want it to be included, just add that tag, it'll automatically be included in here. So your scope could be environment is dev, and then the others for one schedule, and your environment is prod for another schedule, for example. So that's just a way to choose your resources dynamically. In the updates tab, you choose what updates you'd like to upgrade. You want Windows, so update classification, that's security, feature packs only, everything, tools, service packs, etc. And Linux, you can choose other updates or security critical. So this is what you want to apply in this. You can make sure you include certain KBs, or packages, like include this one or include this one. And more commonly we see is exclude particular ones. Make sure I exclude this particular KB because it caused a problem, right? And same thing with packages. So you can go ahead and exclude these. You say you ran them on Wednesday, you found this KB doesn't work. You can exclude this KB from your updates. Events is you can add a subscription to events. So you want to only update, you only want this maintenance configuration to execute if you see a particular event from a messaging service that you look like a service bus, right? Or you afterwards you want to send it an event like updates complete, and that event will send something to a service bus, and that something else will be reviewing it. And so you can do that through here. Tags is just the key value pairs for this configuration, and then review and create. So that is how you would do updates. And then once you have done this, you can go to Update Manager, and this is that dashboard that I was telling you about. So this is where you can manage everything that your updates that you've been doing here. I have 8 virtual machines and 5 ARC-enabled machines. You can see the status of these machines. Some are pending reboot, some are pending updates. These haven't been updated in a while, right? So you can see how they've been, pending Windows updates, pending Linux updates. You can look at these by specific machines. Here we go. This is the machine I was looking at. I have 5 pending updates, right, with these machines. So I can look at what machine require updates, which ones don't, where they are. And then you can also do it through the update view as well. So there's a certain update that I want. Let's say Windows software removal tool, KB 89083. There's an important update in that one. What machines require this? And you can go in here, see this is the update I want, and these are the 2 machines I need to make sure I have it. That don't have it, that need it, right? So you can do it from that view as well. You can also look through your history of your updates. How have these gone? Any errors? Were they successful? When was the last time? So you can go ahead and look through here as well. And so again, this was Azure. The Azure Update Manager is the Azure service. When you Arc enable your on-premise machines, you are allowing Update Manager to work on your on-premise machines, right? You are enabling an Azure service to an on-premise machine. So let's go back to Azure Arc. Let's go back to machines. All right, so that was updates. And then you have inventory and change tracking as well. So these are the ones I mentioned before. Inventory is your software. What software do I have installed in here? Again, I turn these machines off all the time, so you don't really see much information, but this is where you would see it right here. And you would see anything that's new that was updated. And then your Windows registry as well, or files that you have here. And then same thing, change tracking. This is configuration changes that were made in the last little bit. So if I ran updates, you would see a lot of information here, but I haven't actually run any updates. Let me see if I thought I saw an update was running here on my SQL server. I wonder if anything will show up here. Let's see. Oh, I haven't enabled it on this machine. So these aren't enabled by default. So again, these are things that you can use, but if you want to keep this information, it costs money because it'll be sending the data to our log analytics workspace, which is our sink really for logs, our database. And so you'd have to enable that. And I have not done that for this. Okay. So That's the main usage for these machines. Extended security updates. This is where you can apply security updates. I obviously don't have any, but this is where you could create ESU licenses and apply them to particular machines. And what's great about this, so usually when you buy ESUs, it's a yearly thing, I believe. This you can purchase them and you pay for them month by month. So say you have a Windows 2012 machine, 2012 R2 machine, and you're still paying for ESUs, but you're like, I don't want to do another year of an extended security update. I have a project that we're upgrading the 2012 R2s to 2019 in the next 3 months. I only want to pay month by month. You can go ahead and do that too. Through here. And the same thing with SQL Server extended updates. So this is where you would enable these abilities. You can also do this. I thought you could. You can do the Windows Server licensing software assurance, but you cannot do it there. Okay. That is all I have. Anything I did not cover that I was supposed to? Anyone? Any questions? I know I talked really fast.
I don't see
Well,
any kind of
information.
questions in the chat, but let's pause for a minute to just make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
One thing I didn't mention before is I said this stuff is free if you have Windows Server. In order to get that free ability, you have to attest that you have it, right? I want to activate. I have it because I have a Windows license that I have, and that is what this box is. You can also do that from this area here of Windows. Oh no, this one right here. These ones I confirm. I activate benefits. I have software assurance. I'm attesting that I have software assurance, so I get those things for free that were in that one slide that showed what's for free. All right. Did we have some questions? I'm sorry, I can't really see the chat from here.
Yes, Chris, there's a question from Chris. How can we confirm if we have software assurance?
That would be a question for their commercial executive or their account executive, Sadie. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if I could unmute or not.
Sure.
I'm a little less familiar with, I'm more like the network side. So I was looking in the volume license
Mhm.
portal and I didn't, I didn't see it. But maybe we do. But it would be great if we do, because this was a great presentation.
Yeah, you should be able to see it in your portal if you have it. If it's not there, I would reach out to your account rep. We have a licensing specialist, Benny Mathill and Richard Nice, and they would be available to help you figure out if you have it or not. So reach out to your account rep from SoftChoice
Okay,
if you're not seeing it in your VLSC.
thank you.
All right, we have another question. How can I find out who my account rep is?
You can ask me. You can email CAMSA@softchoice.com and I'll respond with your rep, or you can email me. I don't know if you can see my name, but I'll drop my email in the chat. And just let me know what your district is and I will get back to you on who your rep is.
Thanks, Shireen. Thank you, team. Do we have any other questions from the group? Yes, Bradley, the recording will be shared. It'll be available on our site website. If you have any questions or problems accessing that, my name is Christina. My email address is above in the chat. Let me know. I'm happy to shoot it to you directly if you have any issues getting that. It should take about a week, if at most. So.
Can I show one more thing? I forgot about this. This is pretty cool.
Sure, we still have time.
Yeah. So one of the things that is you also get is you can get what is called Azure Monitor of these machines, right? So you can view and monitor your machines from Azure. So I just went to the insights. So monitoring is insights. Insights are, you'll see this here in a second. These things you see right here are what we, and why isn't it showing? Interesting. Go back. Let me try a different one here. That's, I think I just went too fast. But you can actually monitor and see how much CPU utilization, memory, your disk space has on these individual machines. And I'm not sure why it's not showing up here. Usually you have little lines here. It should be there. I wonder what's going on, but you can go ahead and any ARC-enabled machine you have enabled, you can go to this Insights tab and the performance and take a look at it, as well as, let's see this one, as well as, oh, updates, Insights. Here we go. This one. This one shows. I don't know why that Windows machine wasn't showing, but you can go ahead and see how much available memory you have on these machines, your CPU utilization, your IOPS that your disks are using, et cetera, et cetera. So you can go down here and see all this stuff that you have just by default. So this is called Insights, and this is what our Microsoft team, that the engineering team and the operations team who runs Azure and runs like LinkedIn and Xbox and whatever. These are what they find useful. Our site reliability engineers find useful. So Microsoft decided to give this data to our customers in what is called Insights, right? And disk space right here. So this is where you see your disk performance, how much is available, your IOPS, etc., how much is currently used. You can go ahead and do this on this machine. And then this feature is pretty cool too, should show up here, is you can get a, it says click machine. You can get a map of what these machines are actually connecting to as well. So you say it is using port 53, right? That's a common one to talk to my DNS server, and something is going on. You usually show here and show what it's using 443 to connect to Microsoft.com, right? It is using whatever port 445 to talk to your file server. And so you can see exactly what it's doing. So that'd be good for, you know, I want to get rid of this machine. No, this team says they're done with it. Is this machine actually being used for anything? Let me go check to see what it's actually communicating with, type of thing. Sorry, now I'm done. For real this time.
All good, Jesse. All right.
Are there any more questions? Looks like no. All right. You want to wrap it up, Christina?
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for joining. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of the contacts that we have are in the chat here. Shireen, myself, the Microsoft team. I know Diana is on here as well. Thank you again. The recording will be available within a week on the site website. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and we will stop the recording now.